Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 116 of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. Well, as you can see, I have my good friend David Noakes alongside me. David, welcome back to the studio here. And of course, it's just, 5 weeks or so, maybe not even, since David was with me in the studio, along with Lynn, talking about his persecution at the hands of the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Regulatory Agency. This is effectively a front for Big Pharma and staffed by former executives of Big Pharma, masquerading as a government department. So David, it's been a very busy few weeks for you in some respects. You did an outstanding presentation at AV10, where you got and rightfully so, a standing ovation from the audience there. And I know you've been very busy with social media and doing a number of alternative media interviews. So the word is getting out there.
Well, just before we start, I would like to say this is another fine mess that you've gotten me into. I mean, if I'd never attended your 2009 presentation at the University of Ghent, I would never have heard about GcMAF, and I'd have probably had quite a nice life, really.
Yeah, you probably would have done, yeah.
Yes.
And we wouldn't be sitting here in the studio right now. Yeah. But on the other hand, there's a few people who would have had their lives significantly shortened had you not done what you've done over the last few years.
Well, we had 9,000 fabulous results, with 800 saved from terminal stage 4 cancer. So, yes.
So there's a lot of people out there who have a lot to thank you for. But the MHRA, of course, are determined to get, significantly more than their pound of flesh, I might suggest. So you're now, not even 2 months since you came out of your spell in Wandsworth Prison. You're still on the tag, you're still curfewed, and which is why we're recording this a little earlier in the day, so that it can go out this evening at 7:30 after your curfew. And then you still remain on probation, and then you still have the prospect of an attempt by the French judiciary to extradite you to France.
Well, the MHRA contacted their even more corrupt opposite numbers in France, OCALESP, and got them to raise 9 fake charges against me. Absolutely ludicrous, all in the imagination of Judge Goddard. One of them is that GcMAF is a fraud. Well, 350 doctors bought from us. There's 300 scientists have written about the successes of GcMAF, and 9,000 patients can tell us about the successes of GcMAF. So, of course, he shouldn't be able to carry any of this. But actually, what a judge says counts, and what a member of the public says doesn't count at all. So he may well get his 12-year sentence. And we will die in prison. I mean, I'm 66 now, and the French prisons are the worst in Europe. And he wants us for 2 years, 4 months pre-trial. So if we are still alive then, he will try us in a very weakened condition. And he's an expert, Judge Goddard, at abuses of human rights, of abuses of people, and abuses of legal process. A very evil man.
Well, I think that pretty much describes much of the French establishment right now, and a significant chunk of the British establishment, I might add, too. So obviously, they've got to get you to France first. And in your case, the extradition procedure hasn't yet kicked off in this country, has it?
Well, I've attended a couple of court cases, but it was stayed because I was serving a sentence in England. My sentence finishes on the 27th of February next year, 2020, and then they will try to extradite me to France.
Okay, so the first extradition hearing that you're likely to face is the 27th of February next year, 2020.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Lynn Tyre, your partner and the biochemist in the GcMAF project, is facing imminent extradition to France.
Well, she was called up by the extradition movement people this morning and told that she will be taken to France from the 2nd of June onwards.
Which is this coming Sunday.
That's right. So it'll basically any time next week. And of course, she is completely innocent of the manufacture and distribution of GcMAF. So she worked on the development of GcMAF in 2010, but nothing that she ever made was distributed. Our product was distributed from Alpha Biologics when she had finished working out how to make it. So she's actually completely innocent of all charges. But what Judge Goddard did was photocopied my charges, even including my case number, to Lynn. So she has an absolute word-for-word copy of my charges. So she's the big head honko, she was in charge, she was doing everything. It's all a tissue of lies.
Yet her extradition application went through the courts, and although I wasn't present for the early hearings, I was for the appeal hearings, where Judge Supperstone heard basically the same as I did, and on the basis of what was presented in the court, he should have dismissed the application to extradite Lynn really forthwith.
Well, of course, the French have no evidence. And, you know, it's difficult to have evidence for something that never existed. And they have none. And my lawyers should have made this point very clearly. They have no evidence. Therefore, the case does not exist. Therefore, it should have been dismissed. But my lawyer wasn't very good on this. He kept rabbiting on about French jail conditions when there are 8 bases you can object to extradition on. And one of them is not the fact that you are innocent, by the way. This is EU law. All the law that we are being done under is EU law. There are 3,000 EU laws on the British statute books, and they are the laws of a dictatorship. And she may indeed go to France next week. And we're desperate that that doesn't happen because, you know, she's younger than I am. She may survive for some time in jail, but I don't think she'd survive for 2 years, 4 months.
And the likelihood is, of course, that they would hold Lynn on remand until your extradition process is complete, so that it's unlikely they would try her separately, because I know there's other people in France who are also held on French bail, and I gather that their cases are also waiting on, effectively, the extradition of Lynn and yourself.
Well, Lynn's sister started a GcMAF company to our annoyance, and because it's a dangerous thing to do with the authorities being so corrupt, the MHRA in England and OCLESP in France. And I didn't want to do that because it's bad enough us being exposed to it without having her exposed to it. And my God, has she reaped the whirlwind. Judge Goddard has bankrupted her, seized her house and her car. She has nothing left. He very cleverly put both companies together, lying to pretend they were one and the same company. And that allows him to use the extradition laws on terrorism. So we had 1 man out of our 27 in France, and he got 13 policemen, 4 with machine guns, to arrest the hapless David Halsell, who I must admit is a pretty frightening guy. He's written a book. And he spent 5 months in a French prison, and that half killed him. I'm rather surprised he got out. But they want to keep Lynn in there until I get there. And then they want to, Judge Goddard says he wants to try us all together. Well, all of us are innocent of all of his 9 charges, but he wants to put 5 innocent people in prison.
Well, he's obviously in cahoots with Big Pharma, or word is passing, downhill that he has to ensure that GcMAF is never permitted to come on stream.
Yes. So we know that Ocalesp, just like the MHRA, has links to the big pharmaceutical companies, and Judge Goddard and Ocalesp and the MHRA are protecting the $200 billion profits of chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is an average of 40,000 around and does not work 97% of the time, according to the Journal of Clinical Oncology that did a report on 71,000 cancer cases. And of course, GcMAF is 1% the cost of that, and we used to give 25% of it away free to people who couldn't afford it because we couldn't have people dying on us.
So here we have a classic example of the corporatocracy at its most socio-psychopathic, because you develop a product that basically is a natural product. It has a proven efficacy. There are multiple papers published on GcMAF, many of which are available from PubMed, which is the library of the US medical publications. So the efficacy, and of course, as Judge Michael Lorraine-Smith said, that the efficacy of GcMAF was not on trial. In fact, he went on to say that he had no doubt that many people had benefited from GcMAF, and he hoped that many would benefit in the future. So here was an acknowledgement. I mean, I think he absolutely acknowledged that he was between a rock and a hard place, but nonetheless, he still did what he acknowledged in court when he said, this is not a court of morality, it's a court of law. And of course, that's the statement which absolutely confirms that the British judiciary is there to uphold the supremacy of the corporatocracy and not act in the best interests of humanity.
Well, I've recently learned that all our courts are illegal, and the only court that counts is the common law courts. And we're going to see whether a common law challenge will succeed. But it's astonishing how Parliament has orchestrated the concealment of GcMAF and killed 2 million people since GcMAF was discovered in the 1980s. 2 million people need not have died of cancer because GcMAF would have cured them. And they did this by allowing the big pharmaceutical companies to write the medicines laws. So the big pharmaceutical companies wrote the medicines law so that they can crucify any new treatment or new company with new treatment. So they crucified us. And this is why GcMAF has never come out. Everyone has been too scared to go into production because they know what the medicines laws are. And I wouldn't have gone into production if it hadn't been for you. This is all your fault,
Yes, I have a feeling I'm going to be reminded of that ad infinitum.
Yes, you will.
I'm sorry about that. But I know we're not both sorry, really, because so many people have benefited from this. And, we can't put this genie back in the bottle, David. I mean, the genie is well and truly out. And fortunately, the term GcMAF is increasingly in people's vocabulary. And people, often, we know, out of desperation, because they've been written off by their respective healthcare provider, whether that's the NHS or private or whatever, they're written off. And then as an act of desperation, they stumble across GcMAF and find that this is, well, I know you don't like the term, but it is the miracle cure. But David, the issue really, I think we also need to talk about is the cancer charities. Because, I've established that this is a £1 billion industry, £1 billion industry in the UK alone.
Oh, it's a lot bigger than that. I mean, the pharmaceutical companies make 200 billion just from chemotherapy.
So the role of the cancer charities is effectively to act as gatekeepers and to effectively identify early anything that might threaten the supremacy of chemo and radiotherapy.
Well, Cancer Research UK kills scores of thousands of people every year by driving them into the poison of chemotherapy. And they've had a web page on GcMAF for at least 8 years in which they say it's rubbish. And they say, for example, that it would be unlikely that GcMAF would cure so many diseases. I'm sorry, vitamin D cures 90 diseases. And they say it all depends on one scientist. Well, hang on, there are 300 scientists that have written scientific research papers on GcMAF, peer-reviewed and published in the world's top journals. And at a lower level, there are over 1,100 research papers on Google Scholar. So for them to say there's only one scientist when there are at least 1,000 is really annoying. And they keep turning up. That's to say, Cancer Research UK, the MHRA and the BBC. Now the first two have big pharma directors on the board. Cancer Research UK and the MHRA have big pharma directors. But the BBC is spending public money. Why the hell do they want to conceal the cancer cure and kill 120,000 people a year? Because GcMAF would save 120,000 people a year if it was put in the NHS. And then in Belgium, there's the Anti-Cancer Research Institute. And they put out a completely fallacious document to take down two of Yamamoto's papers. He was an early scientist involved, not one of the ones that discovered it in 1980s. And they did take down his papers with completely false arguments. And we don't know whether he's either 93 and infirm or dead. But anyway, they also attacked our paper in oncoimmunology. And we fought like mad and said, no, there's no way you're taking that down. And our paper is still up, and we've never had a paper taken down. But I think they took the weakest possible link in the chain. And Professor Marco Ruggiero, MD, was head of the laboratories in Florence University. And he had 10 PhDs working for him, and they did over 100 experiments on GcMAF. And he came to me in 2013 and said, I would like to leave the university. Can I come and work for you? And it cost me an arm and a leg, but I said yes. He's the best man in the world academically on GcMAF. We wanted him on our team. So we had 4 scientists, and he was told in 2014 to go and visit the equivalent of the General Medical Council in Italy, and his wife. Both of them are professors and both of them are medical doctors, an unusual pair of qualifications, which was very useful to us. And they were told by the chief of the General Medical Council to drop everything with GcMAF, to stop working for immunobiotech, to stop experiments on GcMAF, to stop writing research papers. And if they did not, they would lose their medical qualifications, they'd be struck off, and they would lose their professorships. So they said, can we have a word outside? And they conferred, and they came back and said, okay, we'll have all our medical qualifications taken away. We are not giving up GcMAF. So they were stripped of, struck off as doctors immediately. And then the big pharmaceutical companies said that some of their research papers were fake. So the University of Florence looked at them and said, no, actually, these are really good research papers. We're not taking them down. So then Big Pharma went to the Italian government and got the entire biomedical research department of the University of Florence closed. So that was the 10 PhDs and everyone else who worked in the department. And that is how ruthless the big pharmaceutical companies are when it comes to protecting their profits.
And of course, the irony of this wasn't lost on me. This is today's edition. This is Thursday, May the 30th, 2019. Today's edition in the Daily Mail. Headline is "Victory on Pills That Devastate Lives of Millions." And of course, this is a reference to the excessive use and the excessive prescription and use or misuse of antidepressants. And the article identifies the UK as the country where the most antidepressants are prescribed. And yet Big Pharma will walk away from this scot-free.
Oh, yeah. So we live in the EU dictatorship. We have a right to be depressed. But GlaxoSmithKline, after killing 83,000 with Avandia, only killed 1,000 with Paxil-Siroxit. And that's amazing that they can be that successful that they can only kill 1,000 people with one of their drugs. But the side effects of their antidepressant drugs are so bad some people never get off them for the rest of their lives. Firstly, they can't give up the drug, and secondly, they can't recover mentally. And they live in a hell, and they cannot sue because it's not a death. But even if it is a death, they don't get... GlaxoSmithKline never seem to get any serious... I mean, the directors never get prosecuted. They pay fines, but they have a 30 billion a year income, so they can afford the fines.
Yeah, the directors don't get fined. There's no personal responsibility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you know, it comes out of the it's a tax deductible.
Yeah. So I mean, we get hammered to death. We have 26-year prison sentences personally, and the directors of GlaxoSmithKline get absolutely nothing for 83,000 deaths and thousands of people living miserable lives. And of course, they have their own directors on the board of the MHRA, which is why they never get done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, David, going forward, you have potentially some further court dates. The first one on the 17th of July, which you're not 100% sure what that's all about at the moment.
Well, I have so many court cases. I mean, they're never going to let us go.
So, well, we will obviously keep people updated on court appearances or scheduled court appearances, but I just want to revisit an observation that David made about common law having supremacy over the system of statute law. And the common law courts have stepped up to the plate, and in response to the judgment by Justice Supperstone to extradite Lynn to France, the common law court convened, and I want to read this to you so that I make sure I get the full nuance. In relation to the recent decision issued by the Honourable Mr. Justice Supperstone, I have now been informed that they are going to extradite Linda on the 2nd of June 2019. I think it's on or after. I can confirm, however, that a lawfully convened common law court was convened on Monday the 27th of May 2019, and at this hearing the extradition order was annulled by a jury of reasonably minded peers. John Smith, having obtained a power of attorney for Linda, has also obtained ownership of the legal fiction Linda Dyer. Linda exists as a living woman and has established this fact by recording her birth with the common law court. Accordingly, the statutory courts do not have authority or personal jurisdiction over her, as they can only deal with her personal/legal fiction. In relation to the legal fiction referred to in the extradition order, this is now owned by John Smith. It is not attached to the living woman, and as a result, the extradition order cannot be used against her. A lawful challenge has been forwarded to the High Court today, challenging both the authority and the jurisdiction of the Statute Court and the Crown. Until such time as this dispute is resolved, it would be unlawful under common law to try and enforce this extradition order against a living woman. For full details in relation to the common law court case and the lawful challenge to the statutory courts and the Crown, visit the website www.commonlawcourt.com. So, David, on that basis, Lynn's extradition has been annulled in the common law court, and it is now for the judiciary, i.e. the agents of the corporate state, to challenge that in an attempt to establish their supremacy over common law. But in theory, and hopefully in practice, that should not be the case.
Well, the statutory courts, which include a lot of illegal EU legislation, actually are illegal, and the only court that counts is the common law court. And that's the court that was based on the Bible and is thousands of years old. And the statutory courts should be capable of being struck out by the common law courts. And by the way, on the common law court website, you need to select cases at the top, and case number 28 is ours, and you'll be able to follow what's been submitted.
Okay, so on that basis, with common law supremacy, Lynn's extradition order has been annulled. But anyone who thinks, of course, that the judiciary and Big Pharma are just going to go, oh dear, what a shame, never mind, we gave it our best shot, then they would actually be probably delusional. So the battle isn't over, and and we get an opportunity here to get the legal system, and the definition of legal as defined in Black's law of the late 19th century was the undoing of God's law. And we get to see whether the legal system attempts to establish its supremacy over common law. And, well, let's see how that unfolds. So meanwhile, David, it's wonderful to have you in the land of liberty, albeit just for 12 hours a day. But nonetheless, you are now in the home straight, and you'll be off tag soon and then off curfew. But of course, still somewhat limited. But at least, we can get you back in the studio on an ongoing basis. And obviously, whenever there's something that to update people on, and particularly, any pending court cases. And obviously, we'll make sure that you have the appropriate level of support.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's going to be very exciting, but I have to say all of this has been far, far, far too exciting.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Anyway, look, we're going to play out this segment of the show with an audio that David recorded, and he recorded this audio in a specific response to a request to establish a very short, succinct description of GcMAF. So what we will do eventually is we'll cut this audio out of the episode of Humanity vs. Insanity so that the audio alone will be available as well as an integral part of the show tonight. So, David, thank you so much for producing that, and thank you so much for sparing so much of your valuable free time with me today. And obviously, we'll be with you and Lynn, making sure you get whatever support you need to fight this obscenity, of people developing a cancer cure and then getting persecuted for it by Big Pharma.
Right, but we didn't develop it. It was already in the body, and it was found by scientists. So all we did was extract it.
And made it available to a lot of very grateful people.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
So David, thanks very much for joining me. We're going to play out with this audio of David, and then after the break, I'll be joined by Georgia Pouliquen, the lawyer, French lawyer, who has been persecuted because of her association with the Yellow Vests in France. So, see you after this.
GcMAF will save 120,000 lives in the NHS. Yes, that's 120,000 cancer patients' lives a year. GcMAF is a safe, natural human protein and therefore a human right. Those of you who thought the treatment for cancer was in the human body all along were correct. GcMAF has no side effects. it's 1% the cost of chemotherapy, which is £40,000 around, and it's 40 times as powerful. GcMAF was discovered by scientists in the human body in the 1980s. There are 150 peer-reviewed scientific research papers in the world's top scientific journals on GcMAF, and half of them made it through to the American National Library of Medicine, or PubMed. GcMAF is successful with all tumour cancers, which is 90% of cancer. We wrote 33 scientific research papers, mostly on patients' results. PubMed 249-82371, published in the world's top cancer journal, Anti-Cancer Research, describes how 40 patients received tumour reductions of 25% in the first week in our clinics. We saved 75% of terminal stage 4s in our clinics, and we do have 9,000 fabulous results. Here are 3 interesting cases from the 9,000. GcMAF takes a pancreatic cancer patient with 1 or 2 weeks to live. Even the whites of his eyes and his whole body can be yellow, and in 3 months he has no signs of the disease. GcMAF really is the treatment for pancreatic cancer. Exactly as predicted in the journal Neoplasia in 2003, PubMed 1265968, and in the journal Pancreas 15084979 in 2004. Terry Davis Newman had HGSC peritoneal ovarian cancer. There have never been any survivors. Her doctors told her she would die in November 2016, and they can tell pretty accurately with HGSC. But instead, she took GcMAF. She made a 6-minute video on YouTube. 3 years later, she's fit and well. An oncogene is a mutated gene that pours cancer into your body for the rest of your very short life. Never in history has one been turned off. 25% of women with breast cancer have the HER2 oncogene. Careggi Hospital in Florence, Italy, told a patient she was terminal stage 4. The breast cancer had gone into the pectoral muscle and was inoperable. Furthermore, she had the HER2 oncogene, and her life was over in 2014. She went to our clinic in Lausanne and had Goleic, our GcMAF with olive oil in it, for 3 weeks and returned to Careggi Hospital. The surgeons were astonished the tumour had shrunk and was surrounded by pus, which is quite normal for GcMAF. They simply plucked it out. They biopsied her for the HER2 oncogene again and were amazed to find it had been turned off. 4 of their professionals signed the results into their archives, and we wrote 3 scientific research papers about it, the first published at the Conference by Anti-Cancer Research. All our research papers are on www.gcmaf.se. She had gone from close to death as a terminal stage 4 to completely cancer-free in 4 weeks flat. Today, 5 years later in 2019, she's still cancer-free and as fit as a fiddle. In the early 1990s, enough was known that GcMAF was ready for use in patients. But for 25 years, Parliament has backed the big pharmaceutical corporations and the MHRA to deny access to the British people. It's all about profit. Big Pharma take $200 billion from chemotherapy, and they don't want any competition. That's why the MHRA used the EU's medicines laws, written by Big Pharma to ensure new treatments are throttled at birth, to close down GcMAF and Immunobiotech Limited. We went ahead with GcMAF to save lives and to complete the scientific research, the results on patients. And we did that. We thought there might be a risk from the MHRA. But GlaxoSmithKline, a UK corporation, killed 83,000 with their drug Avandia and got a $3 billion fine in the USA. It's all over Google. However, in England, the MHRA let them off without even a slapped wrist. So as GcMAF had never caused even one death, we thought we were fairly safe. But GSK had two directors on the board of the MHRA, Gerald Heddle and Ian Hudson. They persecuted us to death, prosecuting 9 of us, and asked for a 14-year sentence for me in the UK. Then they asked their even more corrupt opposite numbers in France, Ocalesp, to prosecute us as well. They want 2 years 4 months imprisonment before trial, then a 10-year sentence. So in total, a 26 years of imprisonment, more than a double murderer. And Parliament has given the MHRA sufficient control over the police, the courts, the banks, the Crown Prosecution Service and the prison service. They will get most of that. The fact that 200 patients recovering from cancer then died of it when the MHRA banned GcMAF is irrelevant. All the above government agencies only listen to the MHRA, never to us, or to the science, or to the patients. There is no justice in the corrupt EU dictatorship of Britain. 2 million people have died unnecessarily over the last 25 years, all orchestrated by Parliament. Our website is www.gcmaf.se, but please go to www.mhracorrupt.st and click Parliament Guilty. Then scroll to the bottom of the page and write the 2 letters, one to your MP and one to your local newspaper, to ask for GcMAF to be put into the NHS, where it will save 120,000 lives a year. I'm David Noakes. My email is dm@help.vg. Thank you very much for listening.
We are live. Whoa, what do you know? Hey, well, welcome back to episode 116 of Humanity versus Insanity, the Crane Report. And as you can see, David Noakes has left me now. And I hope that his concise explanation of GcMAF will be beneficial. And I say we will clip that so that it's available as a separate audio. Meanwhile, I'm joined by Georgia Pouliquen, who is a French lawyer. And I have to say that up until just under 2 weeks ago, it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow, I hadn't heard the name Georgia Pouliquen. And on the Friday night dinner at AV10, I got a phone call from some people who said that Georgia was looking to get herself out of France and was on her way to the UK. And could I suggest anywhere where she might be able to stay? Well, I said, we are all here at AV10. It just so happens that somebody had cancelled a room. And I said, well, if you can get her to Horwood House, then she's welcome to spend the weekend with the Alternative View community. And having had a chance to have a chat with Georgia, I then offered her the opportunity to present at the Monday night dinner. And that presentation, Georgia, was so powerful that I broke with tradition and made that video available immediately. And the video of Georgia's presentation at AV10 is available on my YouTube channel. That's Ian R. Crane. So Georgia, first of all, welcome to the UK and welcome to the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, obviously, I'm just going to make the observation, obviously, this is not your first language. No. Your English is a lot better than my French. So with your permission, we'll carry on in English.
Okay.
Okay. But I know, obviously, take your time. But as we saw with your AV10 presentation, as we go through the conversation, you become more fluent. You become more comfortable in your English anyway.
More and more.
So, Georgia, maybe tell us, what was it that led to you deciding that you needed to leave France?
I left France because, I was threatened by a policeman, and I don't know why, exactly why. I think it's because my involvement in Yellow Vests, to help Yellow Vests. I don't know because I have some enemies. My ex-boss, he's a judge, and I know that I think he hates me because I'm not a Macronist. I'm not a supporter of Macron. And when I decided to help Yellow Vests, it became very obvious.
Was that a legal help? Was that helping them from the legal standpoint?
Yes, I began with legal help, general legal help, but on YouTube, my YouTube channel, and it was general, coaching about law for them, and after that, people liked my
insight.
coaching. Yes, and they asked more and more information and more. They wanted to know, and they wanted to become citizens again, or so I decided to enlarge my videos about politics, policy, and Yellow Vests. That's the president. That's Macron. That's his policy, and there are a lot of things which happen in France, and I have more and more followers on my YouTube channel, and so now I think I'm not a lawyer. Just a lawyer. I'm like YouTuber, journalist YouTuber, or something.
Yeah.
Yes,
Helping to spread that word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I decided to come to England because I feel safe here. I hope that's the case, but I feel good in England because in France I don't feel good anymore, like French people.
Well, now, a lot of people in this country still believe what the mainstream or lamestream media pumps out, which is that the unrest in France is all about fuel taxes.
No, absolutely not. It's not about fuel taxes. It's about, human beings who are beaten, who are by the police. Now... it began like a simple demonstration for purchasing power, taxes, a burden of taxes.
Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore. It's about democracy because in France now we have no rights anymore. It was just the beginning of something very, very hard and more, that was just the beginning of the attack of the President Macron against us, citizens and above all human beings.
So
that's
this
not the
switch
same,
seemed to be very quick because
Yes.
Macron was elected as a very popular president, I think. But not
for
many maybe, but I mean, but then there's a massive switch because
Yes.
it seems now that his support in France is minuscule.
Yes, now.
Yes.
I think it was just an image,
Yes.
which was a mask.
Mm.
And Emmanuel Macron, he likes to say, "I want to go quickly, very quickly," and he goes very quickly, and for to abolish our rights, it goes very quickly,
Well, I think
that's
maybe
the
he
thing.
realised, or somebody realised, that basically once they started down this path, then people were going to very quickly wake up to the reality.
Yes,
And they only obviously believe that they can beat the people into submission. I mean, if this had been going on anywhere else in the world, the UN
Yes.
would have been in there by now,
Yes.
you know, with their peacekeeping
Yes.
forces. But you know, very little of this is actually being reported outside of France. Is it being reported in France?
What?
The Yellow Vest protest, is it being reported inside France?
No, I think you know, media, mass media, they report what Macron decided to report. So they are not independent. There is no channel like UK Column in France. It doesn't exist. So we have no free media in France. So we have the voice of the Palace of Élysée, only this voice, and we have social networks, fortunately, for instance, to try to get real information. But you know, censorship comes, and you know, 3 weeks ago, Macron received at the Élysée Palace Mark Zuckerberg. You know,
Yeah, on Facebook.
I don't know why.
No.
I don't know the reason of that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Coincidentally.
the reason of that.
Yeah.
So.
So the reality is that the mythology of this being purely about a fuel tax, you've dispelled. This is the French people realizing that there is an agenda to destroy their economy, to destroy their lifestyle, to destroy their culture, and replace it with effectively a slave race.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, there are signs. I don't know. You know, Emmanuel Macron said that there is no French culture. He said that 1 year ago. And, you know, this symbol, this sign, Notre Dame, which burned. You know, Notre Dame disappeared. Notre Dame, French culture. Notre Dame is the center of French culture. Is the center of something, not only religious, but our common culture. You know, and when Notre Dame burned, we were shocked. But something, you know, there are some signs which stay, because the foundations of Notre Dame weren't destroyed.
Yep, they are solid.
Yes, they are solid. Are like foundations of French culture.
Yeah.
Like foundation of France, you know, and I think it's a good sign, you know, because some people thought that it would be like World Trade Center, that Notre Dame would, don't know, fall down.
And collapse the ethos of the country. Yeah.
But no, that's different.
Yeah.
And I think it's a sign, you know, it's a spiritual sign. It's not like in USA.
Yeah.
France is not finished, you know. Our country is not finished. Our country is not destroyed, for instance. French people are, they stand up, they are proud of them, and now they know who our president is. They understand what he wants to do, and I am very proud of French people. You know, when I watched them from outside France, outside in England, I watched them, and I am very proud of them. I'm very proud to be French, and I want to tell them, be proud of you. It's not finished. It's not over. It's the beginning of something. Our foundations are still here. They're here. Here. Our foundation. The President Macron didn't destroy our foundation, and that's the most important thing. our foundation, our culture are still there. And we have to use this sign and unite us to stay united. Because that's to destroy something. You have to puzzle. You have to make a puzzle. If we are united, so anybody can't destroy us. That's why I want to tell anybody can't destroy us. And that's you have to watch the signs around you. There are some negative signs and sometimes also positive signs. That's something not religious, but just spiritual. Some signs. And
sometimes it has
yes.
to get really bad.
Yes.
It's the alchemical process of solve et coagula.
Yes.
You have to destroy
Yes.
to be able to rebuild.
Yes.
And what the establishment wants to do, and not just in France,
Yes.
what the establishment wants to do is destroy the culture and the economies
Yes.
everywhere.
Yes.
But then what that does is the law of unintended consequences kicks in.
Yes.
And they think that they have the template for what they're going to rebuild.
Yes.
But what they don't bank on
Yes.
is our participation in
Yes.
thwarting their agenda and bringing forward, hopefully, an agenda that is beneficial for humanity.
Yes. Yes. I don't like the destruction. I think that we have good foundation. We have to destroy, a
mindset.
A mind state.
Yes.
The financial mind state to rebuild, but another state mind.
One that doesn't
totally
just serve
different.
the banks.
Yes, totally different. Banks that's not a bank. You have human beings and they are real. And banks, that's just an organization that's something without moral,
Without soul.
without any. That's something we can't.
But it's a
Yes.
a corporation. It's
Yes,
dead.
yes, it is. And we are citizens, but we are human beings first. We are human beings first, and we have human rights, natural human rights, and when in a country, a president or begins to destroy rights of citizens, constitutional rights of freedom of assembly, freedom of demonstrate, freedom of
Articles 10
opinion.
and 11.
Yes, there is something bad because the rights for the citizens are very far away from the natural rights of human beings.
Totalitarian. It's
yes,
a totalitarian state.
Yes, and a citizen, it's not the same thing that a human being. A citizen, he belongs to a state, totalitarian state, for example. But as a human being, it's totally different. A human being, he has fundamental rights. And in France, again, that's why we are proud of our country. We had the Declaration of Human Rights in 1789, And we have Article 2, the Declaration of Human Rights. Human rights, not citizens. The aim of every political association is the preservation of the natural and imprescriptible rights of man. These rights are liberty, property, safety, and resistance to oppression. It's our Declaration of Human Rights, and it's a constitutional law in France. You can apply this declaration in France. So we have this safety.
So is this being challenged?
Safety.
Is this being challenged
No.
in court yet? No.
No. It's I don't know when it does exist.
Yeah.
I don't know the word in England. We can apply this.
Yes.
That's our fundamental right, and it's constitutional.
So it's a bit like our common law court
Yes,
in the
yes.
UK, which we were talking about with
Yes.
David and Lynn earlier.
Yes.
So it's another avenue of challenging the establishment,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, now this
no.
is, you say the French, I mean, they're very tenacious. I have to say, I mean, I lived in France twice
Yes.
during my corporate
Yes.
life.
Okay.
Both times to the west of Paris, because my children went to the British School of Paris.
Okay.
And I have to say, I love the French culture. I mean, I love the French way of life, because, you know, it may have, I'm sure it's probably changed now. This is, 25 years on. But back then, my perception was that the French very much, they simply worked to be able to enjoy life.
Yes.
So there was a chunk of the day, but people didn't work excessively. But, they did what they needed to do, and then they could enjoy family life.
Yes.
And I loved that. It was very different from the UK.
Yes, from the UK.
Which was like, you work.
Yes. Yes.
So I must confess, I very much admired the French culture, and of course French cuisine, absolutely superb. So it's a travesty to see the assault on such a proud culture, and I think it will prevail. And, obviously, these are rights that are not going to be given up lightly, as we're seeing, because now I think we're heading into week 28 of the Yellow Vest Revolution, peaceful revolution.
Peaceful, totally
The
peaceful.
only violence is coming from the establishment.
The establishment, the police. But when you have a president who, I don't know, I searched the word, to divert or to...
To deceive?
No, it's, you use the police, you divert, you distract the police of his mission.
Right.
The mission of the police is to serve and to protect. And it's illegal mission. It's legal mission. And when you have a president who distracts the police of his mission to use this police against people, human beings.
So they
and
effectively
citizens.
become his private guard, Republican guard.
Yes, so it became outlaw. Mm-hmm. The president and the police, they become outlaw. They become outlaw. We are, as citizens and human beings, in law. But a man, a president, chief of state, or everything, who abolish separation of power, and who use public institution financed by our taxes to against people, I think
constitutionally, yeah.
Yes, he's outlaw.
Yeah.
So, we can, police, they don't apply this article. We have, as a human being, not citizens of France, but human beings, the right to safety, security, safety, to be protected by the police or the gendarmerie.
There has been some suggestion that the police that are on the front line shooting the gas canisters at eye level in some cases, but that they are not French. They have been heard communicating in languages other than French.
Sometimes we don't know. We don't know if there are some foreigner policemen. The fact is, we have two police. We have civilian police.
The Police Nationale.
Police Nationale, and we have a military police.
Gendarmerie.
And gendarmerie, they are responsible for only 5% of the injuries against people. Yes, Police Nationale is responsible for 90% of the complaints. So gendarmerie is totally different from police because they are military, and they are military, so they try to be
behave appropriately.
In law, the law is very important for gendarmerie. This is very important. The rights of people. And you know, I have to talk about this because we have a former military yesterday in a video on YouTube called Serge Petit-Demange, who made an appeal to military to arrest Emmanuel Macron because he considers that Emmanuel Macron is outlaw and he abolished separation of power. So he abolished our constitution. He abolished our law, constitutional law, and he made an appeal to militaries to help us and to arrest the president. That's totally, you know, we were surprised, but as I told you, I think he studied the text, he studied the law, and he decided to take the risk to ask militaries to help people, because militaries, like gendarmes, their mission is to protect people and to apply Declaration of Human Rights, and they have a legal basis. Militaries and gendarmes, they have a legal basis. Excuse me. We have the right of safety. When the police, destroy yellow vests and want to kill them or want to hurt them, we need some people to protect us. We have the right, the human right, to be protected against the police when this police is outlaw. This police is now the police of Macron. It's not the police. The police financed by our taxes. It's not our police. Where is our police? Where is our police? We have the right in the Declaration of Human Rights to be safe. And where is our police? Is that Gendarmerie Nationale our police? Where is our police to protect us against?
I think pretty much every country in the EU needs to be asking themselves the same question, because although France is certainly leading the way right now, you know, in the UK, obviously we have this push for Brexit because the majority of people in the UK do not want to be part of the EU. And I think what we're seeing in France is the start of a growing realization that there is an agenda that goes way beyond Macron or way beyond Theresa May, but there is an agenda to literally destroy the economies and the culture of the European nations. And now is the time that people
need. They use police too, I think, against people.
Of course.
And it's outlaw. It's totally outlaw. Okay. And we have a colonel of gendarmerie in France, Colonel Dimeo, who on television he's saying about police national that they committed illegal violences against yellow vests, and I launched a petition, to support him. Gendarmerie and police, that's not the same state mind. Military, they protect people. And I think that we have the right to be protected against these people, these police who hurt young people and peaceful people. We have a lot of young people who lost an eye. In another country, we could say that it's a dictatorship, a totalitarian state. In another country, in Africa or everything, we say that's totally a dictatorship. But in France, no. In France, that's normal. That's normal. We lost an eye. We are peaceful protester, and you can lose an eye. You are peaceful, like young people who lost an eye. They are peaceful, and police, they decided to aim with a launcher ball defense to aim the head in France, in Paris, on Champs-Élysées, the beautiful Champs-Élysées, like on your of our culture and you can imagine that in France. That's the reality now. That's a reality. And where is our gendarmerie? Where is our legal police, where they have to protect us, their duty.
Okay. Yeah, no, we have. I mean, and that message obviously will be getting out many times. Now, Georgia, where can people go to get your updates? You have a YouTube channel, yes?
Yes, on my YouTube channel.
And the name of that YouTube channel is?
Georgia Switch News.
Georgia Switch News.
Georgia Switch News, and we have a Facebook page with my.
And you have one in English and one in French, I believe.
Yes, yes. I have a Facebook page, Georgia Pouliquen, in English. English page, excuse me, and we have a page of news called Switch News, run by Romain Durcalec, who is my friend who run the Facebook page. So I in charge of the YouTube channel, and he's in charge of the Facebook.
So this is where people can go to get regular updates anyway, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and now you're going to be based in the UK for a little while?
Yes, for instance, I feel
okay. So I would say you'll be very welcome back on future episodes of Humanity vs. Insanity, and I know that you've been working closely with the guys at UK Column as well.
Yes.
And
thank you to Brian Garish too, and to you, Ian, to be so kind with me, and
thank you for your outstanding, I mean, somewhat impromptu, I have to say, presentation at AV10.
Yes.
And I encourage people who haven't seen that, if you want to see more of Georgia's insights into what's occurring in France, then take a look at that presentation, which is on my YouTube channel. That's the Ian R. Crane channel. Now we're going to play out with a short video clip which shows, I think, or indicates at least, the degree of brutality that is being adopted by the Police Nationale in France.
Yes.
And anyone who thinks that this could never happen in the UK really needs to think again, especially if the UK remains part of the EU. What we're seeing in France right now is the totalitarian state at its most open. What we're seeing is what they are prepared to do to forcibly implement the corporatocracy, where corporate law has absolute supremacy over all human health, life, and general well-being. So, Georgia, suffice to say, you have enormous support around the UK.
I want you to tell you to sign the petition. You will take the link for the Colonel Dimeo of Gendarmerie. We have to support Gendarmerie, who defend who defend people against violence of Police Nationale. So please sign the petition. Okay, and we'll put a link under the video. Yes. So Georgia, thank you very much for joining me today, and keep doing what you're doing, and good luck to the Yellow Vests. Thank you, and love England. Bon chance. Okay, well that's all for this somewhat impromptu episode of Humanity vs. Insanity. But there is even a possibility that I might be back next week. But if not, I shall be back with you at 8:30 tomorrow morning in a field somewhere in the UK. You take care now. Peaceful people in Nice, that's south of France, and they decided to charge with shields, with batons, and to charge without act of provocation from the Yellow Vest, to charge people who stand peacefully on a place inside the city, and they hit a policeman, hit an aged woman very violently, and derrière son motion. Oh, la femme, ce qu'ils lui ont mis. Regardez-moi ça. Regardez-moi, des papis, des mamies. Oh, arrêtez là. Oh, regardez la femme là. Oh, à terre, monsieur, elle est à terre. Arrêtez. Laissez venir les médics au moins. Vous l'avez mis là-haut. Appelez le pompier là, appelez le pompier. Regardez,
fait une crise. Elle fait une crise, appelez les pompiers. Appelez les pompiers. Appelez les pompiers. Oh putain. Regardez. Regardez-moi ça. Regardez-moi. Faites venir les...
A policeman hit